Good evening, and thank you for joining us. I'm Haylee Ficuciello, Senior Correspondent for Englebrook Independent News. Tonight, we take you across Southeast for a look at some of the most significant federal criminal prosecutions announced during the closing week of June. From illegal re-entry and violent crimes to narcotic trafficking, online threats, public corruption, healthcare fraud, and international drug conspiracies, federal prosecutors continue pursuing major cases across the region. We begin tonight in Maryland. Federal prosecutors announced Vanessa Yellanks Muaz Book, 31, an Ecuadorian national, received 6 months in federal prison after illegally re-entering the United States following her 2023 deportation. According to prosecutors, Mons Barkik unlawfully returned to the United States after later being arrested in Maryland in connection with a violent assault. She had previously pled guilty in state court to first-degree assault and received a 25-year sentence, with all 3 years suspended. Before officials say the case highlights continued cooperation between local and federal law enforcement in prosecuting previously deported individuals accused of committing serious crimes. Federal prosecutors also announced the sentencing of Raymond Pumphrey, 47, of Brooklyn, Maryland. Pumphrey received 15 months in federal prison followed by 3 years of supervised release after transmitting interstate threats throughout social media. According to prosecutors, Pumphrey posted threatening messages directed at multiple individuals and public officials. Investigators from FBI and U.S. Secret Service participated in the investigation. From Maryland, we move into West Virginia. Federal prosecutors announced Thomas Charles Goodwine, 32, received 188 months in federal prison after leading a drug trafficking organization responsible for distributing fentanyl, p-fluorophenol, and methamphetamine. Search warrants recovered narcotics, firearms, cash, cellular phones, and drug trafficking equipment. Prosecutors also identified Goodwin after a career offender with multiple prior felony convictions. In Charleston, Joe Claude Schleider, 66, received a sentencing of time served after being convicted of destroying federal property. According to prosecutors, Schleider repeatedly damaged a secretly accessed scanner outside the Department of Homeland Security investigations facility, causing approximately $1,850,000 in damages. He also was ordered to pay full restitution. Federal prosecutors also announced that Joshua Willie McCarver, 28, pled guilty to leading a drug trafficking organization operating in Huntington area. According to court filings, McCarver admitted to distributing methamphetamine and fentanyl while directing other members of the conspiracy. Investigators also linked him to more than $51,000 in suspected drug proceedings. Search warrants executed during the investigation recovered more than 4 kilograms of methamphetamine, hundreds of grams of fentanyl, a loaded handgun, and drug trafficking equipment. McCarver faces a mandatory minimum sentence of 10 years in federal prison and could receive life imprisonment when sentencing later this year. Charges remain pending against several additional defendants who also presumed innocent unless proven guilty in the court of law. From West Virginia, we continue into Virginia. Federal prosecutors announced sentencing of Michael A. Dillard, 63, of Stanford, a former deputy director of facilities of the Office of the Director of National Intelligence and retired U.S. Army colonel. Dillard received 25 years in federal prison after being convicted of aggravated sexual abuse, abusive sexual contact, and making false statements. According to prosecutors, the offense occurred during an intelligence conference at a federal facility in Williamsburg in 2022, where 2 women were sexually assaulted. Federal prosecutors also announced the guilty plea of Wenchin Hu, 52, a Chinese national extradited from Guatemala. According to prosecutor, who admitted to participating in a conspiracy involving international cocaine trafficking, money laundering, and providing material supporting to Cartel de Jalisco Nueva Generación, or CJNG, a designated foreign terrorist organization. Court documents allege the conspiracy imported more than 450 kilograms of cocaine into the United States and laundered more than $22 million in drug proceeds. Hugh faces a mandatory sentence of 10 years in federal prison and could receive life imprisonment when sentencing later this year. From Virginia, we continue into Tennessee. Federal prosecutors announced the indictment of Dr. Angela Moss, 55, of Gordonsville, on charges involving health healthcare fraud and unlawful distribution of controlled substances. According to the indictment, most allegedly prescribed controlled substances without a legitimate medical purpose over an 8-year period with operating in the Gordonsville clinic. Prosecutors allege more than 5.6 million pills and doses of controlled substances were prescribed throughout the clinic. The charges remain allegations, and most is presumed innocent unless proven guilty in the court of law. Federal prosecutors also announced the sentencing of Antonio Dwayne Watkins, 32, also known as Tony Bolonga, or Gator Mac. Watkins received 432 months, or 36 years, in federal prison following a conviction of drug trafficking, firearm offenses, and assault on a law enforcement officer. According to prosecutors, Watkins possessed methamphetamine, fentanyl, and a loaded firearm, and later sold additional narcotics to a confidential informant and assaulted a deputy while in custody awaiting trial. Federal prosecutors also identified Watkins as a member of the Gangster Disciplines criminal street gang and career offender based on a prior felony convictions. The court also imposed 10 years of supervised release following his release from prison. From Tennessee, we continue into North Carolina. Federal prosecutors also announced the sentencing of Jessica Loeta Staten of Rocky Mountain after she admitted to preparing fraudulent federal income tax returns over a 7-year period. Staten received 2 years in federal prison, followed by 1 year of supervised release. The court also ordered her to pay $1 million in restitution to the Internal Revenue Services. According to prosecutors, Staten operated a tax preparation business that submitted false tax returns by claiming fraudulent tax credits and fabricated incomes to generate larger refunds. Federal authorities estimated the scheme caused more than $3 million in losses to the U.S. Treasury. Federal prosecutors also announced the indictment of Ronnie Lorenzo Robinson Jr., 56, of Charlotte, on charges involving healthcare fraud, making false statements relating to healthcare matters, and aggravated identity theft. According to prosecutors, Robinson allegedly used stolen identifications to submit approximately $735,000 in fraudulent North Carolina Medicaid reimbursement claims throughout a behavioral health company. Investigators allege the scheme resulted in approximately $440,000 in taxpayer fraud Medicaid payments. The charges remain allegations, and Robinson is presumed innocent until proven guilty in the court of law. From North Carolina, we continue into South Carolina. Federal prosecutors announced charges against 7 defendants in connection with alleged bribery and contraband smuggling conspiracy center at Lee Correctional Institution. According to prosecutors, former corrections officer Lawanda Atkinson allegedly accepted more than $550,000 in bribes in exchange for smuggling contraband into the prison. Investigators allege inmates received items including cell phones, tobacco products, marijuana, and other prohibited items that were later resold inside the facility. Several defendants have pled guilty, while others continue facing federal charges. Those cases remain pending, and all defendants are presumed innocent until proven guilty in the court. Federal prosecutors also announced additional sentencings in public corruption investigations involving the North Charlotte City Council member. Former council member Jerome Sidney Highwade received 6 years in federal prison after convictions involving extortion, bribery, and money laundering. Former Councilman Mike A. Brown received 2 years in federal prison after accepting a bribe connected to a rezoning proposal. 2 additional defendants have received 18 months in prison after admitting their roles in a kickback scheme involving public grant funding. From South Carolina, we continue into Mississippi. Federal prosecutors announced that Louise Philip Smith Jr. of Madison received 30 months in federal prison for participating in a Medicare kickback conspiracy. According to prosecutors, Smith accepted illegal payments in exchange for referring patients to medically unnecessary laboratory testing. Investigators say the scheme generated more than $1.4 million in Medicare claims, and Smith was also ordered to pay more than $544,000 in restitution. Federal prosecutors also announced Brian Galisa Barelas, a Guatemalan national previously convicted in a racketeering conspiracy tied to MS-13 gang, received an additional 18 months in federal prison after assaulting a senior Bureau of Prisons officials. The sentence will be served consecutively to his existing federal prison term. From Mississippi, we move to Alabama. Federal prosecutors announced that D. Carolyn Carusha Robinson, 24, of Bessemer, received the statutory maximum sentence of 10 years in federal prison after pleading guilty to illegally possessing a machine gun. Federal officials continue warning that illegal modified firearms capable of automatic fire remains a growing public safety concern. In a separate Alabama case, Carlton Leonard Adams received 10 years in federal prison after pleading guilty to federal dog fighting and firearm charges. Authorities rescued 78 pit bull style type dogs during the investigation, one of the largest single defendant dog fighting rescues in federal criminal cases. Adam also was ordered to pay more than $548,000 in restitution to cover the care of the rescued animals. From Alabama, we continue into Georgia. Federal prosecutors announced charges against Quintovius Bailey, 34, following the armed robbery of an Atlanta pawn shop. According to an indictment, Bailey allegedly entered the business armed with a firearm, threatened employees and customers, and stole cash and jewelry before fleeing. He now faces multiple federal charges, including Hobbs Act robbery, possession of ammunition by a convicted felon, and discharging a firearm during a crime of violence. The charges remain allegations, and Bailey is presumed innocent until proven guilty. From Georgia, we conclude our report in Florida. Federal prosecutors in Pensacola announced charges against Hunter Drake Lovett of Pace for the theft of government property. According to prosecutors, Lovett faces up to 10 years in federal prison if convicted. The case remains pending. Federal prosecutors also announced the indictment against Joseph Lee Parker of Old Town on charges including attempted enticement of a minor, attempted production of child sexual abuse material, and attempted receipt of child sexual abuse material. According to prosecutors, the allegation involved conduct spanning nearly a decade. The charges remain allegation, and Parker is presumed innocent until proven guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. Federal prosecutors also announced that former U.S. Postal Service employee Evan Aldrich Harris pled guilty to theft of mail by a postal employee. According to court records, Harris admitted to stealing gift cards from greeting cards while working at the postal processing facility. Across the Southeast, these federal prosecutions reflect continued enforcement efforts targeting violent crimes, narcotic trafficking, public corruption, healthcare fraud, firearm offenses, child exploitation, organized criminal activity, and financial crimes. While many defendants have pled guilty or been sentenced, others only recently been charged or indicted. Under our justice system, every defendant faces pending criminal charges, is presumed innocent until proven guilty beyond a reasonable doubt in the court of law. We'll continue following these cases as they move through the federal court system. For continued coverage on federal law enforcement, major criminal prosecutions, public corruption investigation, and breaking national news, continue following us at Englebrook Independent News. I'm Haylee Ficuciello. Thank you for joining us and have a safe evening. Good night.